9:10 here, Big 550 KTRS. Tonight at what time tonight, David Stokes? What time tonight? Tonight, is he speaking? He spoke last night. Oh, he spoke this morning. So I missed it.
Yes,
I got him on the show.
You did.
Thanks to the Show Me Institute, who has brought in our next guest, Sam Brownback, who the former senator of Kansas and the current sitting governor of Kansas. Good morning, Governor Sam Brownback.
Good morning. It's great being here, and we got a bunch of Kansans coming in for Arch Madness. Wichita State's going to win it.
Oh, okay.
And we're really looking forward to that. I'm not going to be able to stay for the games, but great basketball team, great basketball state.
Let's first start with probably the biggest controversy you have been involved in over the last number of years, and that is it your fault that Missouri and Kansas do not play basketball anymore?
I would say more that's Missouri leaving Big 12 and going to the SEC, which has worked for them in football. I don't know so much in basketball that it's worked for them, but it has worked for them in football. I'll grant that. I didn't want them to leave the Big 12. I mean, they're the original Big 8 people, and we've been playing each other for 100 years, and KU-MU rivalry is one of the oldest in the nation.
I mean, if you can't, and Jay Nixon, figure this out, how can you work with anything else?
You shouldn't have left us.
All right,
you shouldn't have left us.
In terms of full disclosure, I've been to your state numerous times. My sister is a graduate of the University of Kansas.
Is she?
Every single time I've been to Kansas, I've had a fantastic time. Wichita, Lawrence. Russell Baker is probably one of the greatest authors I've ever read, who's from Kansas originally. So I have a great affinity for your state.
And can you say go Jayhawks, or is that really something can't cross your lips?
I actually
no.
I went to Nebraska, so I got bigger issues than
there you go. Yeah,
but
they left us too.
That's right.
I didn't like that either.
Yes. But I shot baskets with Danny Manning at Allen Fieldhouse during a rain delay once during a baseball game. Yeah.
What was the score?
We beat Kansas, I think, that year.
Yeah, did you beat Danny Manning?
I did not beat. No.
Oh,
I think
I
think he won horse to H or something. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's get to it. You a few years ago did something that many people talk about, but so few have the either power or the ability to do, and that is you installed a massive tax cut for Kansas. You dropped the personal income tax. You went from 3 to 2, and you dropped the income tax. And then what also you did was you basically did away with taxes on small businesses.
That's correct.
And you said, make it rain, because all of this is going to, the businesses are going to come flocking. Money is going to come flowing into the budget. Now, a few years later, you have a $600 million budget shortfall.
With increased spending, and we're going to balance that this year, and we're going to be able to do it with a little cigarette tax, some tax on alcohol, and we've had record growth in the number of new small businesses registered in the state of Kansas, and we're 4th in the nation on small business income growth. We're 9th in the nation on small business creating new jobs in the state of Kansas. We're basically close to full employment, 4.2% unemployment rate. We've got net taxpayer migration happening. We've had it from Missouri for the first time in a number of years of people moving. These things do take some time, but I think you also got to look where we were. When Bob Dole was first elected to Congress, he was elected from the old 6th congressional district in northwest Kansas. We're down to 4, headed to 3 congressional districts if we don't get more people moving in, and those trend lines are starting to change. It takes time, but it's starting to change.
Let's talk about this for a second. You increased spending these last 4 or 5 years?
It's been pretty flat, but the rate of increase has been 1.4% total. And what we've done is we've reduced a number of areas of state government and increased the spending in K-12, Medicaid, and fixing our pension hole. We were the second least funded pension system in America when I started. We're about middle of the pack now.
So, but the $600 million budget deficit, is that... Are you taking in $600 million less money, or are you spending $600 million more, or 12 or 1.2 billion more, and you're 600 in the hole?
It's about half and half.
Right. Did the tax cut do what you said it was going to do?
I think so. It's early. We've had nice job growth.
Would that job growth have happened? I mean, Missouri's had job growth. The country's had job growth. But we haven't had the massive tax cuts that Kansas had.
Well, let's compare Kansas City. That's a great place to look at. 55% of the city jobs are on the private sector jobs are on the Missouri side, 45% on the Kansas side. We outpace Kansas City, Missouri, the 5 metro counties in the Kansas side, 70% of the time on private sector job growth on the Kansas side versus Missouri side. That's more than we've done historically. You got a wage differential on the Kansas side of about $2.93 now an hour. It was 40 cents an hour when I started in 2011. You've got, those are a couple pretty good, you're at record employment levels in the state of Kansas, and we're still struggling with general aviation. That's a small business aircraft. The big aircraft are going great guns. But Cessna, Textron bought one of the pieces that had gone into bankruptcy of our aviation industry, and so you're still dealing with that consolidation. I think it has worked. I think tax policy takes time to work, and I think if you look at our prior 40 years of declining, being a high income tax state, you can say the high income tax state of Kansas didn't work, and didn't work for the people of Kansas when you measure it over time.
You mentioned you raised some taxes. You raised cigarette taxes. Cigarette taxes in the
proposed.
Yeah. You proposed. This is your proposal
for this legislative session to finish. Because I think we need a mixture of reductions in spending and increases in consumption revenue. We're moving from income taxes to consumption taxes. That's the long-term push.
That's the long-term goal is what you want. So cigarette taxes, and Missouri has the lowest cigarette tax. I think it's 17 cents a pack. Kansas was at 79 cents a pack. You want to raise it to $2.29 a pack just for state taxes? That
is one that we can fill the budget gap in. It continues the move towards consumption tax. We've got a national cancer center at the University of Kansas. They are strongly behind it. It helps in the reduction of people smoking, which you can imagine does take place. They're a strong proponent of it for a public health issue, and that's part of the proposal.
Why wouldn't somebody in Kansas City just drive across the border to Missouri and buy a cheaper pack of cigarettes?
They do already, in some cases.
Wouldn't this push more people over to Missouri?
Yeah, you get some that take place. No question. Just like we're getting people from Missouri moving into Kansas now because the income taxes are lower.
But if you keep cutting all the road money, they won't have any roads to drive over to Missouri.
Let's talk about roads. If you want to talk about roads. We're ranked 5th in America on the quality of roads on the Kansas side. I don't know where your ranking is here.
We're not very good roads. That's why we get you here and we keep you here, because you can't leave. You fly in and you can't drive out. We'll get to roads in a second. Alcohol consumption or alcohol taxes have gone up significantly. I want to say you want to charge somebody 10%. As a alcohol tax?
8%. But it is a proposed increase. We haven't increased our taxes on alcohol since mid-'70s, something like that. And again, it's part of the move away from an income tax to a consumption-based tax system. And that's something that, there isn't any place in America that's done what we're trying to do since Alaska did this in the 70s, I think it was, when they went off the income tax. There are 9 states without an income tax. Most never adopted one. The pro-growth position is to go to a zero income tax state. I'm trying to leave property taxes alone and then mostly hold down spending, cut spending in areas that are not core functions of government, core functions, education, public safety, highways, Medicaid, pension. We got to fix our pension problem for the last 30 years. And this is part of that continuation of movement. And I want Kansas in the future to look a lot more like Texas and a lot less like California.
Getting ready for this interview, do some research on Sam Brownback, governor of Kansas, talking about this. You've called it more or less of a test, right? I mean, you've said let's see what happens, right? I mean, everyone's agreeing that everyone's watching Kansas to see how this all works out.
Yeah, and I also have said that we have 40 years of data to prove that us being a high-income tax state has not worked. When I started, we were at 6.45% income tax rate, which is pretty high. I think we were highest or second highest in the region, and we were seeing out-migration all around us. So, I mean, we've got the data to say the prior system was not working. Now, some people may say, well, I don't like your idea. Okay, well, what's yours? Or do you want to just stay on this slow decline and continuing to lose population relative to the country.
There is out there, people are saying that, and you mentioned property tax, there's an allegation out there that farmers, you're raising farmers' property taxes? Is that?
No.
Explain that, because that's out there.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people don't want to see us cut income taxes, but we are not. Property taxes are dominantly a local issue.
Right.
At the state level, they're set by Constitution and statute, and we are leaving property taxes alone. Some of the property taxes for farmers are going up because they base the valuation on an 8-year rolling average of the valuation of the property. And so now you're starting to roll into some years, more years, where you had $8 corn, even though it's $3 now.
Right.
And your valuation then is higher. But that's been in the statute.
That's not a function of a state government. That's more the local issue.
It's local, and that was a statute that was passed 30 years ago. And this is this function of, okay, you wanted to kind of slow your property valuation change down, but now you're getting into your higher valuation years.
How long before your critics finally say, you know what, Sam Brownback was right? Kansas has clearly shown that cutting taxes is the right way to go about doing this.
You know, I don't know that they'll ever say that. I mean, they just believe in having more income taxes. So I don't know that they'll ever say that.
But the argument is that $600 million in deficit, you're cutting some state funds for schools. You're cutting some state funds for... You're not cutting state funds for schools.
No, we've increased them $177 million from last year. What happened, the legislature passed a bill to increase it $130 million off of a court order.
Okay.
The portions of it are entitlement system, and the schools found a way to up that to over $200 million. Which was far more than the legislature funded it.
Right.
I did an allotment of a 1.5% cut on the K-12 system, which backed that number down to $177 million increase over last year's funding level for the K-12 system. $177 million increase. Now, it's not the 200 plus that it was, but that's not a cut.
So here you have Sam Brownback defending that he's a spender. All right, hold that thought.
Yeah, you can.
Senator Sam Brownback. But I mean, seriously, 10 years, 15 years, 2 more years, 3 more years?
The data points are moving now. We've got a record number of new business filings.
Right.
We've got nice job growth happening, particularly in the Kansas City area where you have that competitive zone.
Right.
You got wage growth happening on the Kansas side. You know, but I think a lot of people say, yeah, well, you didn't win this month.
Right.
Okay? And I think it's going to be hard for the critics to at any time be willing to say that, even though the numbers are starting to move and the old system wasn't working.
Sam Brownback with us. We'll get to a couple more topics here. He's the governor of Kansas. We won't hold that against him. We're back with more, and we want to thank the Show Me Institute for bringing him in. He had a nice talk at the How was the Chess Hall of Fame last night? Pretty nice place, isn't it?
That's a cool
fun
place.
deal.
I went to the Billikens game, which wasn't so good.
All right. Well, you might cut taxes, but we have the Chess Hall of Fame here in St. Louis.
You sure do. I love St. Louis. St. Louis is a great town. I got a niece that lives here and works here, and got a couple kids.
Fair enough. Altair Travel and Cruises, ladies and gentlemen.